Today, we're so excited to have Maonica Denais with us on our show today. And she is a Latinx licensed professional counselor in Dallas, Texas, who specializes in helping ambitious women and entrepreneurs overcome self-doubt and build confidence in both personal and professional life. She is very sought after as she is an expert and host of the podcast Cafe with Maonica, and she interviews inspiring entrepreneurs and discusses mental health and entrepreneurship topics, which is a lot of what we do on this show. So thank you for bringing your expertise over here. Welcome today.
Thank you for having me, Becky.
All right, we have a lot to cover. And as I was exploring your website, your videos, and your podcasts, you have talked to so many people and you have some very creative elements on your website. And I really look forward to hearing about all that. But why don't you talk to us about your focus with ambitious women and entrepreneurs and how you scaled down to focus on that demographic?
Yeah, I feel like I have to start a little bit with my story. I grew up in a small border town called Laredo, Texas, a border city from Mexico and Texas. And I never really knew much about like how much like my ambition was driving me to the ground. I was always told growing up, like, get a stable job, like, go to college, like, get all of these accolades to prove yourself. To a point where I took it so serious, where put myself towards burnout. I had graduated from my master's degree, got the dream job that I thought I was going to take working in community mental health for the government. And I was completely burned out. I started noticing, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I could have this huge caseload. And at the time, I working with people with various disabilities to help them find employment. So I always knew like, a lot of people are not always going to work in the traditional 8 to 5 job.
For sure.
And during that time, I noticed a lot of people who wanted to start a business, but the program I was dedicated to wouldn't really give them an outlet to do that. And I thought to myself, like, I don't think that I want to continue doing this. Like, I thought that a stable 8 to 5 was the route that I wanted to go towards. And quickly realized that it wasn't for me. So while I was licensed as an intern, I started a podcast. And because I said to myself, I just want to network, I just want to basically make a name for myself. Like nobody knows me. And I think sometimes in school, they discourage you from kind of like marketing yourself as an intern. They really want you to focus on utilizing your supervisor and learning. And for me, I'm like, well, I learn as I like from other people. I learn from networking. I learn from just like applying and learning things and not so much like just being on the sidelines and being in the background. And so I ended up starting the podcast, which then introduced me to a network of entrepreneurs in Dallas. I remember this. I went to Dallas Startup Week, which is a week here in Dallas where just a bunch of founders get together. And I remember going by myself, knowing no one, but I started talking to people. A year later, I was actually asked to be a speaker there because I knew I'm like, I am going to start calling myself a therapist for entrepreneurs before I've even had my first entrepreneurial client. And I also knew there was such a need. I started having conversations with women and where there wasn't, at least here in Dallas, there wasn't a specific therapist who was focusing on ambitious women and focusing on entrepreneurial stress, which oftentimes when we're having business stress can trickle down to our personal life. And so there
For
wasn't
sure.
anybody kind of feeling that need. So then I said, what if? Like, what if I just started calling myself a therapist for entrepreneurs, embracing it, just really trying to create content on social media that could really resonate with these people because it resonated with me. I was already looking for this type of content because as a Latina, first gen, Mexican American, didn't have anybody to kind of teach me about business. And, I loved my counseling program, but they didn't really have a course on business or entrepreneurship. It's kind of like you have to
For
learn it on your
sure.
own,
Right?
you know? So
Yeah.
long-winded answer, but that's basically kind of like my journey. I was just in a room with women and saw a need.
I love that. And that resonates so much when that's why I'm enjoying this podcast so much because I've talked to so many people, especially like you said, on the business side of things, that when you're in this type of field, you really learn nothing about it. My background is education and then the counseling world. And yeah, they don't go into that. And I just personally find it all so interesting. So I love how your story pushed you along and how you just called yourself like, I'm reaching entrepreneurial women, even though I might not have my first client yet, but look at where it's brought you. That's so awesome. Um, let's talk about some of your clients and some of the maybe deep-rooted patterns or behaviors that they are experiencing and how you start with them to lead them out of that maybe darker spot or just something that they want to tweak to help them have the success that they are longing for.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some of like the common patterns that we've a lot of entrepreneurs experience is definitely anxiety, definitely a lot of burnout, and definitely a lot of maybe unmet needs that they're trying to fix with the business. So I always tell clients like I always like have to ask them like what brought you into business. Sometimes it is the control part, right? Like I want to control how I make money. I want to control what I have to do. And then they get into entrepreneurship and then they become slaves to their clients. they
Mm,
they are not sticking to their boundaries. They are constantly thinking about the pressure of the financial aspect of entrepreneurship. They're constantly thinking about their next goal. So those are some of the common things where I see my clients, and regardless whether they're making 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures, it is still the same like concerns, where that is they're they are maybe not focusing on their personal life so much and they're focusing so much on their business. Maybe their business is just starting. And so we can start seeing like this imbalance leading towards burnout, or this imbalance of leading towards perfectionist tendencies, like having to maybe not take action. Maybe they're like stuck on like, I have to have the perfect website or I have to have the perfect social media presence. Or even I've had some clients tell me like that sometimes their family get the crumbs of them. Like they get the crumbs left over at the end of the day
mhm.
because their priority is, uh, getting their business off the ground or up leveling or scaling or doing all these things. And unintentionally that happens. And so where I see this imbalance, so one of the ways that I like to approach these types of problems is I have a company a combined approach with acceptance and commitment therapy and solution brute focus therapy. And for me, it begins with the belief that my clients are the experts of their lives. And I focus less on the problem and more on generating solutions, because a lot of these women are so self-aware to where they're having a conversation and they're like, oh, I know this is my problem. And I know this is my problem. And so sometimes cognitive behavioral therapy may not meet the need for them because they're aware of their thoughts. It's not a matter of like reframing thoughts. They need to have action steps. They need to have ways to be able to apply to kind of first change the behavior versus changing the thought. And so I help clients to stop avoiding, denying, and stop struggling with like some of their inner emotions, whether that's anxiety, whether that's pressure, whether that's stress, or even anger, frustration. I kind of allow them and give them a space and tools to accept that these are feelings that are appropriate responses to any situation. Like I think we live in a culture where we're constantly wanting to either get rid of, manage, or just like never feel negative emotions, whether that's anxiety. And I'm like, you need anxiety in your life. Like if a bus was coming towards you, like your anxiety is
Mhm.
going to tell you get away, like
Right.
get out the way, right?
Healthy fear.
Exactly. And so I
Mhm.
think like when we start kind of diving deep into those, because a lot of it is like they intellectualize a lot. And so I have to kind of put it in a practical way for them to be able to cultivate the skill of accepting these negative emotions, knowing that even if they experience anxiety, to a healthy degree, or even if they experience frustration, that is part of your journey. That is part of the hardships, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will prevent you from moving forward in your life. And it is very collaborative. I love to identify my clients' strengths and the resources that they have available in order for them to actually make change using those resources. Because I think not everyone has the same strengths, not everybody has the same resources, and it's going to look very different for a person who comes to therapy. Maybe they've never gone therapy before, maybe they've never done any kind of personal development work. And so really just looking at like, where are you at? What are your strengths? What are the strengths that you often overlook? With solution brief focus therapy, there's a lot of emphasis that in our life we make a lot of exceptions. Like there are things that we're like, oh, I mean, I could have a hard conversation with someone, but then when it comes to family, like I could totally not have that hard conversation. And so I kind of like challenge them and saying like, you have the tools. It just so happens that there's a different narrative with this particular person. So it's very collaborative. It's very kind of we together collaboratively write the treatment plan, and we write the treatment plan with their words. Because I think
Mhm.
sometimes, at least that's like whenever I went to therapy, I'm like, wow, I like, do I have a treatment plan? Like, just like, what is my treatment plan and what are my goals? And that was not discussed. And
Mhm.
I didn't know at the time that, oh, like a therapist, like have treatment plans and we have objectives and goals. And so for me, I really wanted to make sure my clients know exactly what we're working with, but they also know that if we needed to divert to a different conversation, we could, but that we always have the goals and objectives in mind, written in a language that they can understand, if that makes sense.
No, that's great. So many things stood out
Yes,
to
what?
me. No, let's see. I wrote a couple notes so I wouldn't forget. One thing is that if some of the people, especially if they're entrepreneurial counselors or therapists, they are so aware of their body, right? They're probably so aware of the problem part, and that I love how you said they don't need to do the reframing. They just need to see solutions and, oh, love the Stanley.
Yeah.
I like that color. I love my green. Anyway, total off topic. Um, so the counselors especially, and I've heard this before where some of them maybe need more of the coaching. Um,
Hmm.
and a lot of it mixes together, but not always. Everyone needs a different thing, depending on their background and their education and how aware they are of themselves. So thanks for pointing that out. And I like how you use the phrase experts of their lives, that they, you know, and you give them a clear vision with writing out goals and all that type of thing. So, one thing I did want to touch on was, do you find the entrepreneurs you're helping, are they mainly in the mental health world, or are you helping with other fields? And what would those be? Just a
Yeah.
few
So
general categories.
yeah. So, so I have a lot of people in the personal development space. So these are mindset coaches, like health coaches. I also have a lot of like fitness industry people.
Okay.
I also have a lot of tech startup people. So people who
Okay.
previously worked for companies like Meta, Google, Pinterest. So I have those, so very kind of like high level, either they came from being like high level executives or had high positions in those particular companies, and they're now like starting their own thing, they're starting their own startup. And then I do have a good caseload in my coaching and also consulting, because I do consulting with other clinicians for their private practice. I do see some mental health therapists, social workers, psychologists, who I just help kind of really figure out like, what does their definition of success mean, and how would they like their private practice to look like. Because a lot of, at least for me, what I saw is like there was coaching programs and business programs that were teaching the person what they did, and the person felt frustrated trying to apply the same techniques that that business coach did, and it wasn't relevant to them, or they didn't see the successes as a like for them, like it wasn't replicated. So I also have a lot of business coaches too, which is interesting.
Uh,
But we do more of that mindset work for them, so that they are able to bring good techniques and strategies for the clients that they help. Yeah. So it's a combination of like different industries for sure.
Okay, good. I'm glad we talked about that because I always love seeing how the different careers dissect and come together. And so knowing that, I love to talk to health coaches or knowing people in the business world. It's so fun to talk to and you're helping. They're signing up for your help. So um, one thing that when we were looking and planning, it seemed like you definitely have a focus on efficiency and getting the most value out of the counseling sessions with your clients. Can you talk about that angle of your practice?
Yeah, I love to leverage a lot of tools and so for me, I think it came from like my own experience with therapy and my also just like in the mental health field, like we have just such a long way still to go. Like we're making strides to really get more advancing technology and to be able to use automation, but still like the human to human interaction is obviously needed, right? But like for me, in order to the minute my client starts with me, like if you did look at my website, you'll see that like if they book a consultation, I already kind of have like pre questions asking them so that I could identify if we're a good fit. And this could be availability. Like I already put like, hey, are you available this day? So they know, okay, maybe yes. I always say like, hey, I'm out of network. So this is transparency of pricing. This is how much it would cost. And then I always ask like, where did you find me? And I always ask like, what are the specific things that you're looking for? With coming, I'll even ask like, are you an entrepreneur? Are you a therapist? Like, are you like what, or are you a business professional? Because I want to make sure that it's aligned with me. I don't waste their time. And during the consultation, we can now get into the nitty gritty as like, okay, what are the pain points that you're experiencing? And then that way we start off on a good note. Once that all happens, we have the consultation. I give them a initial assessment and some intake paperwork, and it's like really tedious. I tell clients like you're gonna need like 20 to 30 minutes at least to fill this out because I want to be able to dive in first session. Like I want to be able to know a little bit more about you first session in, and that has really helped because as soon as we get into it, we're not having to go through the intake paperwork. Now it's just like I have their questions and I can ask clarifying questions so we can go deeper and start kind of having a little draft of our targeted goals that we may want so that we can establish a clear roadmap for them. Something else that I do for my sessions is I keep them very progress oriented. I make sure that my clients, like I said, are part of the treatment planning process, and that they sign it, that they know that, hey, we're going to have a 60-day or 90-day plan. You have it in your client portal. You can look at it anytime and know that I'll be referencing it throughout our like our sessions. And then I like to also give like regular evaluations. So this could be like if we have a 90-day plan or like a 90-day treatment plan, it might be every month. We'll have just like a little progress, like, hey, we're kind of reaching the end of our 90 days. This is kind of like what I'm looking at. Is there something that we keep? Are you feeling good about like, how we're progressing? And that's really cool because I feel like that empowers the client to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be in therapy forever. And even then, I also teach them that it's okay to be in therapy if they decide it's a self-care tool for them. And we can just minimize sessions so that, again, they have some goals in mind, but at the same time, they can always use this as a self-care tool and they don't always have to come weekly or bi-weekly or whatever the case. Other tools that I use that I currently just love. So for my EHR program, my health records program, where I kind of keep all my client records and my clients have portals. I use Simple Practice. I don't know if you're familiar with Simple Practice, but it is a EHR program. And one of the
We
tools
can
that
talk
they
about that for sure if you want in a
yeah,
minute.
yeah. So
Okay.
so basically to kind of like use the most time like effectively know they're making progress, they have a treatment progress tool. So after each session you have the option to either pick a specific goal from your treatment plan and then you can select a status report. So let's just say the goal was to minimize rumination on decision making. Like that's just an example. Then I could put on the status like, okay, this person has regressed, or maybe this person has improved, or maybe this person has made progress. So utilizing those kinds of tools have been so helpful in just like streamlining the process, making it so easy. Like my clients just like they know that I'm super organized. They get emails to remind them about their appointments. So again, because I don't want them to miss. I don't want them to miss out. I don't want them to have to pay a fee and then they're having to come back another day, right? And then not like kind of limits the progress that they were making. So I'm very efficient in making sure one, bridging the gap from helping them show up and also making them aware of like what they're working on and always having those goals in mind. So again, very
Yeah.
long-winded answer, but
No, I love it. Very thorough. And as a person who's often multitasking and love efficiency, I like how, they might have to do some lengthy homework, if you will, beforehand, but then when you are face to face or online with them, you can get right to it and bypass some of those. You probably maybe bypass 1 to 2 sessions, and speed it along, but also letting them know that this is a tool they can use anytime. So I love that. Are you still hearing me okay?
yes, there was like a little bit
Okay.
of a disconnection. I had to disconnect my AirPods, but let me see if I connect them again if
Okay.
it works. Okay, there. It was just like
Okay.
staticky, but you're
Yeah.
fine. I think it's just on my end.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. I just noticed it was like barely little pauses of you freezing up,
yeah.
but I'll write this part down. We're at about 21 minutes or so. Okay. One thing, well, you brought out the simple practice. One thing I'm seeing all the time on a lot of counselors and therapist websites is often the phrase out of network. And I would just love for some of our new people going into this field or maybe not understanding the business side, if you could just talk about how that works for your clients when you use the phrase out of network with insurance.
Yeah, so when it's out of network, it basically means that you are not in network with the insurance, meaning the insurance, you don't have a relationship, a contract with the insurance or any insurances, whether that be Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, whatever insurance, you're just not partnered with them. So your clients have options. So the option is private pay, meaning they pay cash, they pay with the card, or they could also pay with a health savings account, usually given from their employer, where they put money into the account specifically for health reasons, and they can still utilize that for someone who is out of network. And then also out of network means that if your client has insurance, but you're out of network, you can provide what is called a super bill. The super bill basically just has a summary of all the services that you've provided to your client, including a diagnosis, because that's what the insurance need in order for potentially the client who has insurance to get reimbursed. So let's just say the insurance only pays clinicians $80, but you're out of network and you charge 160. um Potentially your insurance, if you've met your deductible, meaning if you met a certain threshold of like what you're supposed to pay for your benefits, they'll say, hey, we'll pay $80 out of that 150 and we're going to reimburse you, the 80 because we're paying for that. So that's potentially something that clients could do. But out of network just basically means you're not contracted with the insurance. Therefore, you wouldn't kind of submit the stuff for the client. Some clinicians do, some clinicians submit the super bill to the insurance. I don't do that. I kind of just give my clients a roadmap of like, hey, this is what you could do. This is the number that you can call, kind of basic information so that if they want to do it, they can. But that's just kind of like the most simplest way of saying it. It's like you're not contracted with the insurance, you're considered out of
Gotcha.
network.
Yes. No, that was a great clarification, which I think will be helpful because people say insurance, it's always tricky. And then that just helps people understand different options, but how they could still use their insurance. So good to know.
Yeah.
Um, Let's talk about, are there some specific clients that you have permission from, or maybe you just speak in general that you have seen through the years who have had some great success, or you just really felt good about the case and where it took them, and just maybe some of your most proud moments over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have specific clients, but I mean, I'll talk more about my coaching clients because they definitely it's a little bit easier for me to kind of talk about their progress. But overall, I mean, I've had people who have come in, they're making a lot of money. They're making again 6 to 7 figures, like crazy amount of money. And a lot of them that I noticed is specifically got a lot of their success during COVID. So they were making with because in the fitness industry, so anybody in the fitness industry who was doing like any fitness programs or they were doing online things, they were successful because what were we doing during COVID? Nothing but just being at home. So they were really successful. But then when COVID stopped, they started seeing kind of like a decline on the consistency and stability of their business. And so that created a lot of financial stress and anxiety. And one of the things that was so helpful with working together was just like really understanding, um, helping them understand kind of the the way business works and that you're not always going to have these consistent, stable months. And the more that you're able to accept the uncomfortableness of that emotion, because it is like it's a situation that you kind of have to grow comfortable with or be uncomfortable, but know that there's going to come a time. Because what I would saw with certain clients is they would let their circumstance kind of dictate the way they were making decisions. So they were like putting out things in their business that didn't make sense, that weren't aligned with them. They were like, I'm putting so much hours. I feel like social media has a claim over my business. I feel like, again, not in control, which is one of the probably primary reasons why they went into business. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw about us working together to help them kind of cope during this time of uncertainty and to learn and redefine their definition of success and learn that like, hey, that strategy that might have worked during COVID because there were certain environmental factors that contributed to your success work then. That doesn't mean that it might work now. So it's better to adapt, reinvent, realign, and see. And for them, it's like I was able to help them understand that wow, I could actually make a business that probably feels more aligned than I had before and still make the money that I make. It's just like looks different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really told them, hey, let's think about how you made that money. And if it took hours, time, which you probably had during COVID, because a lot of times we weren't able to use our protective factors like go to church or go to like happy hour with friends or do all these things like
Right.
social things, which
Yeah.
are were meant for us to stay stable, right? Protective factors
Yeah.
like that are meant for us to stay stable and healthy. But because we weren't doing that, a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs and ambitious women, put their efforts on work or career, or fitness or whatever. And so I told them, like, there's a different circumstance now because now everybody has now access again to the things that we were missing during COVID. So, like, we kind of have to reinvent and adapt. So, kind of helping them learn through the transition of adapting, learning stress management tools for them to feel better about where their business is going. But that was a trend that I saw a lot and that I feel so great that my clients now are no longer feeling this claim over financial stress. Like they're not feeling like financial stress owns them. Instead, if they fail, they see it as like that has to happen in business in order for me to figure out and do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so kind of learning how to fail and learning how to learn from those mistakes versus perpetuating as I am a failure. No, that thing failed. You're not a failure. That thing failed. And just like you were able to be successful in 2020, you can be successful in 2022 because you still have the tools that got you there. You might just need to like tweak and adapt them a little bit. So yeah, so that's kind of one of like the themes that I saw that was really cool. Seeing people kind of like helping them during that transition.
Yeah. It's funny, the one of the workout centers, they had started their own gym, I think in 2018. And my sister-in-law was working with them in another state. And then when everything shut down, they went online with all this Facebook presence, and their industry flourished. And then they even moved states to a better climate. And yeah, it was kind of fun to watch. And I always, I didn't personally know them. So I don't know if they were getting help from someone, but I could totally see if they were, how it was helping. So, and I so resonate with, I would say, building the stamina back after COVID, how you said
Mm-hmm.
we had time to do all these things, and then people maybe took on as much work as possible online. And then when family life, relatives, holidays, sports, everything that we weren't doing came back, we get so much easier worn out, I feel like. And so I can see how everyone had to restructure. So thank you for bringing that out.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely wanted to touch on, I believe you see clients in person and using telehealth, right? And one
Yeah.
thing I really loved on your website was your video of your office, and just kind of seeing the space, right? I love looking at people's faces, houses, offices,
Me
whatever.
too.
So that's just fun. But then if you're going to talk to someone about serious matters, I think it brings an added comfort level. So just talk to us about how that works online, in the office, anything about that.
Yeah, I personally chose to do that because I remember the first time that I went to my therapist's office and didn't know, this was in college. I didn't know where the building was. I wish that they would have like given me directions. My anxiety was so like on another level. And so I think to myself, like, if my clients, this is their first time, or regardless, like, I don't know about you, but like, I mean, in Dallas, we have a lot of like some like parallel parking downtown. And so I always have to find, okay, a garage. I can find something because it's like anxiety provoking to like just figure out where the location is. So for me, it's like even on the first session, they'll get an automatic text message that says, here's my address. Go into the elevator, turn left. It's the door on the because there I know that if you're running late or you're already stressed out about it, the easier, the clearer the instructions are, the more at ease you're going to be. And that's just going to help build rapport better. And by I don't know, but for me, like also being able to see the space that I'm going to, like sit down also gives me more at ease. Like, oh, okay, like it's familiar. So something that, could initially be unfamiliar and scary turns into more familiar. I know how this is going to look like. I know how Monica looks like, even through my podcast and everything. I just want to provide a space for people to kind of have a general idea of who I am. I give them office directions, like very detailed, because I remember myself feeling like super nervous in my first time. And so having even my website video where like where the lobby is and where the space is just provides some comfort, especially to a scary situation. If it's your first time in therapy, just being able to know how that's going to look like makes something that initially was uncomfortable and unfamiliar feel more comfortable and familiar. And that's kind of what I strive, even with content on social media, my podcast. I strive for people to get to know me a little bit, so that it's not so scary. Like something that
For
I
sure.
love is when people call me on a consult and they're like, I feel like I already know you. I feel like already so comfortable talking to you. And that's like the best compliment. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
what I'm putting my energy into is working. And I encourage clinicians who are listening to this to think about in what ways can they already kind of pre-comfort their clients, like how could you make it easier. And just like you said earlier, like I just love looking at people's faces. It just
Hmm.
gives me so much ease and comfort. I even love watching like cleaning videos, decluttering videos, because it brings me so much comfort.
Hmm.
And I'm like an HGTV fan, so I just like love being able to use kind of what I learned from all those shows and kind of creating a little video for my
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah, I like that word, pre-comfort level.
Mhm.
It makes me think of like the first time you go to someone's house that maybe is more of an acquaintance, and you're a little, you're so conscious of your shoes and where do I park? And I can imagine if they come in, they're running late, parking was bad. they got yelled at because who knows what, and then they land in your office, they're not even in the right frame of mind to tackle what they need to because they're at this heightened state. So that is so helpful. I'm glad that you brought that out. And I can totally sense your passion with the things you've experienced in the past and how you want that to be better for your clients. So helping everyone all around. Um, let's just talk a little bit about the future of your practice or where you see things changing, improving. What I definitely see you as not a static quo person. So, what do you see for the future of, and I do want to say it again, but I'm going to double check that I don't say it the wrong way. Latinx, is it Link? Yeah, Latinx licensed professional. But what was the name of the company again?
Yeah, so so you said Cafe with Monica?
Oh, yes. That's the name of the podcast and the practice, or just the
Yeah.
podcast?
So my practice is just named after me. So it's just
Oh,
Maonica
okay.
Denais Counseling.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, so
Okay. But yeah, how do you see the future of your practice changing, evolving?
yeah, I'm going to be very honest with you. As someone who like was always an achiever growing up, I have redefined what ambition means to me and what that will look like for my practice. If you'd have asked me like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have said, "Oh, I'm going to grow this group practice and I'm going to go have keynotes and I'm going to build a course and membership." And to be completely honest, I really would like to continue to stay small in my practice because I feel like I create the most impact with having a small caseload. I personally don't want to be anybody's boss. The extent to that would be just like growing a team of like people to help me outsource things would be the case. And I would love more to be more consulting in other group practices. That's kind of like what I see in the individual level with clinicians and how they can better make their group practices more efficient, and so they could thrive as individual entrepreneurs but also as part of a team in a group practice. And then I also just want to continue expanding my presence on social media. I started last year on YouTube, which is something that I was always afraid of. Is actually one of the reasons why I started a podcast first, because I was so self-conscious about being online and also just being on like video. And so when I was so scared, so I started the podcast that helped me really cultivate the skill of being able to have conversations. I had more speaking events, like I started recording more videos. And so finally did my YouTube channel. And that's kind of where I want to continue because I think it's a great way to where I blend mental health and lifestyle content to provide more accessibility to topics that maybe someone would only be introduced to if they had access to therapy. So that's kind of where I'm seeing myself right now. So it's funny that you said, like, I see yourself like not being stagnant. And I'm like, yes, but I'm also like, I really want to stay small in the sense of my practice, but maybe bigger in my social media presence.
No, totally get that. And I don't mean it in a slam at all to say status quo, because I think consulting and
Yeah.
anything like that is huge. And that would be a shift. But I think it's great that you see your goals and you're happy with what's happening and why not stay with what works. So thank you for that. Is there anything else that you felt like we didn't cover today that you would want our listeners to know about?
No, I think that we covered everything. If anybody, I think the biggest takeaway is for people to, if this is a new clinician or someone who's in their first to 3 years or someone who's already kind of expanded and have grown, but maybe they're not feeling fulfillment in what they're doing, that allowing themselves to accept that it's okay to change your mind and it's okay to start saying that you are something, because how are you going to become it unless you say it out loud and unless you
Mhm.
kind of create the steps to do it? Like, I think so much I can't call myself an expert because of this, and I can't call myself an expert because of that. You're already an expert. I used a lot of, the way I build my practice from my own personal experiences, and that has so helped me so much and has been so relatable to my clients that we like everyone's an expert in their own lives. They have so many like knowledge and things that they could integrate into their practice and who they serve that could really help them like create a practice that they love and that thrives.
Thank you. But definitely personally inspiring to me. And yeah, sometimes we just have to dive in, right? We can't wait for everything to be completely perfect in place to do something new. So thank you for that encouragement. We're so appreciative of your time today, Maonica. And I encourage you, if you're enjoying our podcast, to listen to Cafe with Maonica. Lots of great episodes with all kinds of people. I look through, I want to say there's over 80 episodes. So enjoy that. And to our listeners, thank you for chiming in, for tuning in. Please give us feedback on topics that you would love to, or type of therapist that you'd like to hear from. And please come back to the show to listen for more niche counselors and therapists and all kinds of, you can see that all of these are different. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here today, Maonica.
Thank you so much for having me.